So one of the biggest questions or comments I get when I talk about welding sheet metal panels on a car is that people are like, well, that works great on a bench, but what about in a practical situation where you can't get to the backside, like on a quarter panel, a door skin, or anything like that that either has inner bracing on the inside or just something in the way? The way I feel about that is you have to make access. I don't really like cutting bracing out to reach inside because then you have to weld the bracing back in. So usually what I do is, say it's a quarter panel or a roof, something that I don't have a lot of good access to, is I will go around and I'll drill all the spot welds out and remove the entire quarter after I've got everything tacked or welded, finish out my weld seams, and then I'll put the quarter back on at the factory spot weld seams. That way you have access, it's easy to handle, and you can do a seamless repair. It sounds like it's a lot of extra work, but you kind of have to take into consideration what quality level do you want to take your work to. It might sound like a lot of extra work, but in reality, if it produces a nicer finish that will make your brand and your work look that much better, to me, it's worth it. So a lot of people might even say that I'm full of shit, I'm just making stuff up, and I don't really do that kind of stuff. And that's fine, you don't have to believe me, but I know I do, and I actually have a project here that is kind of proof of doing that. So this is a 51 convertible, and I had to delete where the license plate was and all the trim holes on the back. So I made this panel, shaped it, fit it, trimmed it, and it's fully welded now, but on the inside there's a lot of bracing. Let me grab a spare deck lid and I can show you how limited the access is going from the inside. Here I have a spare deck lid, and you can see that all this bracing is right in the way of where my weld seam is. I might be able to get to some small sections, but not enough to work the entire seam as needed. So how do I do that? Well, I take the entire skin off of the inner structure. That way I can gain access, correct the seam, get everything metal finished to the level I want, and then I can put the skin back on. So with that said, what I like to do is I will come around with a grinder and I'll edge grind the hem off of the deck lid skin that wraps around the inner structure. That's what holds it on the inner structure. So I grind all of that off, just like if you're replacing a door skin, and then I take the skin off, do my finish work, and then when I go to put it back on, I cut a strip, whatever the width of the hem edge was, usually around 3/8 to a 1/2 inch, and I will clamp it in place and I'll edge weld it all the way around to make a simulated hem edge. And usually I don't like to do a lot of edge welding just due to the fact that it's kind of hard to correct if there's anything going on warping wise due to the heat input from the welding. But when you do it as a hem edge, you can still hammer and dolly it because you have your skin and your bottom, and you can put the hammer and dolly right on the edge and work that weld seam back out. So this is one of the few instances where I actually will do an edge weld on sheet metal. So I went ahead, trimmed off the hem edge, and I can go ahead and pull this skin off. So now I have complete access to get in here and work my entire welded seam as I need. And you can see the inside of the deck lid is clean. It was acid dipped before I got it. So now that this is off, I'll come back and I'll clean some of the remaining rust and corrosion off, and I'll put a nice etch primer on that and an etch primer on the inside of the deck lid skin before I put it back on. So this is just to show proof that I really do take panels off to work the seam before putting them back on, because I don't want it to look like this has ever been welded. And if you can't hammer and dolly out your weld seam, you're never going to be able to have a seamless finish. So thanks for checking this out. I know a lot of my videos have been short lately, but I don't have a lot of time to do filming, but I thought this was super pertinent to get this information out and actually show that I do take panels off as I say I do in the videos. And it's not one of those things, do as I say, not as I do. So I'm gonna get back to hammering and dollying this seam out. Thank you guys so much for checking out this video and some of my others. And with winter coming up, I'm hoping I have a lot more time to dedicate to filming and putting out content for you guys. So if you haven't yet, please hit the subscribe button, tell a friend, drop a comment, let me know what you think, and we will catch you guys on the next one.